Hey y'all, it's Neilz. Welcome back to Penny for Your Thoughts. This is the space where we slow life down long enough to hear what truth actually sounds like, where reflection meets reality, where growth isn't rushed, softened, or explained away. If you're here today, it's because something in you refuses to settle. You didn't come for noise, you came for clarity. Let's get into it. Imagine this. Tomorrow morning, you wake up just like any other day. You stretch, you brush your teeth, you pour your coffee, you check your phone. Nothing feels unusual until you hear a knock at the door. You open it, but no one's there. Just a small package sitting on your porch. No return address, no shipping label, just your name written in handwriting you've never seen before. So you bring it inside. It's surprisingly heavy. You peel back the tape, lift the lid, and inside is a single black leather book. No title, no author's name, just smooth black leather. So you open the cover, and the first page reads, "Everything that will ever happen to you." Your heart starts racing. Every relationship, every friendship, every opportunity, every success, every failure, every mistake, every dollar you'll ever earn, every dream you will accomplish, and every dream you'll never get the chance to. And near the end, one final page, the exact day, the exact hour, and the exact minute your life comes to an end. There's one note attached to the inside cover. You may read as much as you want, but once you've seen it, you'll never be able to forget it. No rewinding, no skipping, no pretending you didn't read it. Your entire future sitting in your hands. So, what do you do? Do you open the book or do you throw it into the fire? Because today's question isn't really about a magical book. It's about something much bigger. Hi, good morning. If you could know your future, would it actually make your life better? Or would it quietly destroy everything that makes life worth living? Before we answer whether knowing the future would ruin your life, let's admit something about ourselves. Most of us are already obsessed with the future. Maybe not with crystal balls or fortune tellers, but in a thousand little ways we rarely notice. Think about how often you ask questions that begin with, "What if they leave me? What if I fail? What if I don't get the job? What if I never find love? What if this business doesn't work? What if I made the wrong decision?" It's amazing when you think about it. Our bodies are standing in today, but our minds are constantly living somewhere else. Psychologists have a name for this. The human brain is built to predict. Long before we had cities, technology, or smartphones, our ancestors survived because they learned to anticipate danger. The rustling in the bushes might have been the wind, or it might have been a predator. The humans who prepared for what could happen often lived longer than the ones who ignored uncertainty. Thousands of years later, that same brain is still doing its job. Only now, instead of worrying about lions, tigers, and bears, we worry about text messages, paychecks, relationships, followers, medical results, retirement, the future. The funny thing is, we've convinced ourselves that if we could just know a little more about tomorrow, we'd finally relax. But has that ever actually happened? Think about GPS. It tells us exactly how to get to where we are going. Yet, the moment traffic appears, we are frustrated. Think about weather apps. We know it's going to rain 3 days from now. Yet, we still complain when it does. Think about social media. We refresh our feeds looking for signs, looking for answers, looking for reassurance. We are surrounded by more information than any generation in history. Yet anxiety continues to rise. Maybe the problem isn't that we don't know enough. Maybe it's that we've confused information with peace. Here's an analogy I want you to think about. Imagine climbing a mountain covered in thick morning fog. You can only see about 10 feet in front of you. At first, that sounds terrifying until you realize 10 feet is enough to take the next step, then the next. You don't need to see the summit to keep climbing. You only need enough vision for the step you're standing on. Maybe that's how life was designed. Not to reveal the entire mountain, but to reveal just enough for today. Because if you could see every storm waiting ahead, would you still have the courage to begin the climb? Or would you sit safely at the bottom forever? Maybe our greatest weakness is that we don't know the future. Maybe it's believing that knowing it would finally make us feel safe. And that raises an even bigger question. What if certainty isn't the blessing we imagined it to be? Because before we talk about what knowing the future would cost us, we have to understand why the idea is so tempting in the first place. Let's talk about the dream of knowing tomorrow. Have you ever noticed that when life feels uncertain, your imagination immediately starts making promises? It whispers things like, if I just knew what was going to happen, I'd finally be at peace. It's one of the oldest lies we tell ourselves. We believe certainty is the cure for fear. Imagine for a moment that the book from our opening story is real. This time you decide to open it. The first few pages are incredible. You discover that everything you've been praying for actually happens. The business succeeds. Your family is healthy. People you love make it through the storms you are worried about. You become the person you've always dreamed of becoming. Can you imagine that feeling? The relief, the excitement, the confidence. You'd walk through life differently, wouldn't you? Every setback would seem temporary because you'd already know how the story ends. Every rejection would lose its sting because you'd know it eventually leads somewhere better. In many ways, certainty sounds like a superpower. And honestly, there are moments when it probably would be. If you knew your best friend only had 6 months to live, wouldn't you call them more often? Wouldn't you hug them a little longer? Wouldn't you stop wasting precious time arguing over things that won't matter a year from now? If you knew your health would decline in 10 years, maybe you'd start taking care of your body today instead of waiting until the doctor forces you to. If you knew an investment would fail, you could avoid losing everything. If you knew someone planned to betray you, you could protect yourself before the damage was done. There's no denying it. Knowledge can be powerful. In fact, some of the greatest breakthroughs in human history happened because someone saw something others couldn't. Meteorologists predict hurricanes. Doctors detect disease before symptoms appear. Engineers calculate failures before bridges collapse. Parents can often sense when something is wrong with their children before anyone else notices. Prediction saves lives. Preparation changes outcomes. So it's not crazy to think knowing the future would make life better. In fact, it sounds almost irresponsible not to want it. But here's where things get interesting. Notice something about every example I just gave. The future only has value because it allows us to act in the present. That's important because somewhere along the way, many of us stopped wanting knowledge so we could live better and started wanting knowledge because we are afraid to live at all. There's a difference. Preparation is healthy, control is addictive. The desire to know tomorrow often has very little to do with wisdom and everything to do with fear. Fear doesn't just want answers. Fear wants guarantees. It wants contracts. It wants certainty that nothing will hurt, nothing will fail, nothing unexpected will happen. But life has never signed that contract. And deep down, we know it never will. There's a story I think about often. Imagine a young couple expecting their first child. They decorate the nursery, they argue over baby names, they imagine birthdays that haven't even happened yet. They laugh about whether the baby will have mom's eyes or dad's smile, and none of those moments are guaranteed. Yet they're beautiful because of the hope that they carry. Now imagine someone walks into that room and tells them every single thing that's going to happen over the next 25 years. Every scraped knee, every report card, every heartbreak, every triumph, and every goodbye. Would the nursery still feel magical? Or would every joyful moment become overshadowed by what's waiting in the future? Sometimes certainty doesn't protect joy, it contaminates it. It replaces wonder with countdowns. It turns into it turns anticipation into obligation. It makes us experience tomorrow before we've even finished living today. And that's the beautiful lie of certainty. We think knowing more automatically means living better. But maybe the moments we treasure most aren't valuable because we knew that they were coming. Maybe they're valuable precisely because we didn't. Think about your favorite memory, the conversation you never expected, the opportunity that appeared out of nowhere, the person who walked into your life when you had stopped looking, the laugh you didn't see coming, the miracle you couldn't have planned. Almost none of life's greatest gifts send a calendar invitation. They just simply arrive. Which raises a difficult question. If certainty can quietly steal wonder, then what else does it take from us? Because I don't think the greatest cost of knowing your future is losing surprise. I think it's losing something even more important, courage. And that's where our journey will take us next. Let's imagine you've done it. You didn't burn the book, you read it, every page, every chapter, every ending, and you now know exactly how your life unfolds. At first, it feels like freedom. No more guessing. No more sleepless nights, wondering if you're making the right decision. No more anxiety over the unknown. You finally have all the answers, or so you think. But then Monday comes. You wake up, you make your coffee, you head to work, and something feels different. Not because your life changed, because you changed. You already know what's going to happen. So every moment begins to lose its tension. Imagine watching your favorite movie for the 100th time. The first time you saw it, your heart raced. You leaned forward during the suspense. You laughed unexpectedly. You cried because you didn't see the ending coming. But after enough viewings, every line, every twist, every surprise, the movie doesn't change, but your experience of it does. Life is no different. The unknown isn't just part of the experience, the unknown is the experience. Think about your first kiss. You didn't know how it would go. Your first interview. You didn't know if you'd get the job. The first time you told someone, I love you, you had no guarantee that they'd say it back. That uncertainty wasn't a flaw, it was the heartbeat of the moment. Now imagine reading in your book that you'll marry the love of your life in exactly 4 years. How would dating change? Would you genuinely invest in people? Or would every relationship become a waiting room? You'd sit across from someone thinking, you're not the one. The book already told me. You wouldn't be dating anymore. You'd be killing time. Now, imagine the opposite. The book tells you that your current partner is, in fact, the one. Would you still choose them every day? Or would you become lazy because the ending is guaranteed? One of the greatest gifts in love is choice. Every day, someone wakes up and chooses you again. But if the outcome is fixed, choice begins to disappear. And where choice disappears, love slowly becomes obligation. The same thing happens with dreams. Let's say the book tells you that your business would become wildly successful, millions of dollars, recognition, everything you've ever hoped for. Sounds amazing until you realize something. Why stay up late? Why sacrifice? Why risk failure? Why fight through rejection? It's already guaranteed. The struggle that once built your character suddenly feels unnecessary. Ironically, the very thing that made success meaningful, the climb, has been taken away. Now flip it. What if the book says your business fails? Not once, but every time. No matter what you do, would you even start? Would you write the first page? Launch the first product? Record the first video? Or would you quietly quit before giving yourself the chance to become someone new? Here's what scares me the most. The future wouldn't just predict your decisions, it would begin to control them. You'd stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What's the point?" And that's a dangerous place to live. Psychologists call this learned helplessness. When people believe their actions no longer matter, they stop trying, even when opportunities still exist. The prison isn't made of walls, it's made of certainty. And here's the irony: we spend so much of our lives begging for certainty, not realizing that certainty can become a cage. There's an old saying: a bird born in a cage thinks flying is an illness. I think certainty works the same way. If every chapter of your life is already written in your mind, you stop looking for new possibilities. You stop taking risks. You stop believing that one conversation, one decision, one act of courage could change everything. Because according to the book, it can't. But here's where I believe life teaches us something extraordinary. Some of the greatest moments in history happened because people acted without knowing the outcome. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't know how history would remember him. The Wright brothers didn't know their experiments would change the world. Countless entrepreneurs, artists, inventors, and everyday people stepped into uncertainty with nothing more than hope and conviction. If they had known every obstacle ahead, would they have kept going? Maybe. But I think many of them found strength because they didn't know. Courage isn't walking a path that's guaranteed. Courage is walking a path where failure is possible and moving forward anyway. Think about that. If certainty removes the need for courage, then maybe uncertainty isn't life's greatest enemy. Maybe it's the birthplace of bravery. And if that's true, then perhaps we've been asking the wrong question all along. Maybe the question isn't, would knowing my future make me happier? Maybe the real question is, who would I never become if I already knew how my story ended? You know what time it is. It's time to flip the coin. Because every meaningful question deserves more than one perspective. So let's hear both sides. Heads, knowing your future is a gift. Let's stop pretending uncertainty is romantic all the time. Sometimes the unknown is terrifying. Sometimes the phone rings at 2 in the morning. Sometimes the doctor says, "We found something." Sometimes someone you love walks out the door and never comes back. There are moments when uncertainty doesn't feel exciting, it feels cruel. If knowing the future could prevent even one tragedy, wouldn't you want it? Imagine knowing that next Tuesday your best friend is going to be in a terrible accident. You don't know how, you don't know why, you just know it. Wouldn't you call them? Wouldn't you beg them to stay home? Wouldn't you do everything in your power to change that? What if you knew your child was drifting down a dangerous path? What if you knew addiction was waiting around the corner? What if you knew your marriage was going to fall apart 5 years from now? Wouldn't you start having the hard conversation today? Wouldn't you love harder, listen better, forgive sooner? Maybe knowing the future wouldn't make us careless. Maybe it would make us grateful. Maybe we'd stop postponing joy. Stop waiting to say, I love you. Stop assuming there will always be another birthday, another holiday, another chance. Maybe certainty would teach us how to cherish the present. After all, regret often comes from not realizing something was precious until it was gone. What if knowing the future simply removed regret? That's a powerful argument, but let's flip the coin. Ooh, tails. Knowing your future is a burden. Now imagine knowing the exact day someone you love dies. Not just that it happens, but the date, the hour, the minute. How do you celebrate birthdays after that? How do you enjoy vacation? How do you laugh at dinner? When a countdown is running in the back of your mind, every happy memory would have a shadow attached to it. Every hug would quietly whisper, there aren't many left. That's not peace. That's emotional weight. Or imagine reading that you failed. Not once, not twice, but every time you chase your biggest dream. How many people would keep trying? Most wouldn't. Because certainty has a strange way of stealing hope. Hope says, maybe. Certainty says, already decided. And hope has built more dreams than certainty ever could. Here's what I believe: the future is like a wrapped gift. Half the excitement comes from opening it. If someone tears off the wrapping paper before your birthday, the gift might still be valuable, but the experience changes forever. Life isn't only meant to be lived, it's meant to be discovered. Maybe that's why the future stays hidden. Not because life wants to frustrate us, but because discovery is one of the greatest joys we will ever experience. So, what's your answer? If someone placed that black book in your hands, would you open it? Or would you let the mystery remain? Take a second, really think about that, because your answer probably says more about how you see life than the question itself. What if I told you your brain was never designed to know the future? Not because it couldn't handle the information, but because it might stop living altogether. That sounds dramatic, doesn't it? But stay with me. Let's imagine your favorite meal. Maybe it's your grandmother's mac and cheese, a perfectly cooked steak, a slice of cheesecake after a long week. Now, here's my question: when does the happiness actually begin? Is it when you take the first bite? Or does it begin the moment someone says, I'm taking you out to dinner tonight? Think about it. Suddenly your mood changes. You start imagining the taste. You picture the restaurant. You can almost smell the food before you even left the house. The experience has already begun, even though nothing has happened yet. Scientists have spent decades studying this phenomenon, and they found something fascinating. Our brains don't just enjoy rewards, they enjoy anticipating rewards. In many cases, the expectation of something wonderful activates many of the same pleasure pathways as receiving it. Think about being a kid on Christmas Eve. Did you sleep? Probably not because you already had the presents, but because you didn't. The mystery kept you awake. The excitement lived in the waiting. Now imagine every Christmas for the rest of your life if you already knew every single gift under the tree. Who bought it, what color it was, how much it cost, exactly what was inside. Would Christmas still feel like Christmas? Or would it become another Tuesday? Maybe the wrapping paper was never the point. Maybe the mystery was. In life, it works the same way. The first date is exciting because you don't know where it's going. The first day at a new job is exciting because you don't know who you'll become there. Starting a business is terrifying, but it's also exhilarating because every customer, every opportunity, every setback has the potential to surprise you. The unknown doesn't just create fear, it creates possibility, and possibility is where hope lives. Now, let me tell you a story. Imagine reading a mystery novel. On page one, someone leans over and tells you exactly who committed the crime. Every clue, every twist, every shocking reveal. You could still finish the book, but would you read it with the same curiosity? Probably not, because curiosity is fueled by unanswered questions. Life is the greatest mystery novel you'll ever read. Every morning is another page. Every decision is another paragraph. Every relationship is another chapter. The beauty isn't that we know how it ends. The beauty is that we get to participate in writing it. Now let's bring faith into this. One of the questions I've wrestled with is this: why doesn't God just tell us everything? Wouldn't that make obedience easier? Wouldn't it eliminate doubt? Wouldn't it strengthen our faith? But then I realized, if God revealed every chapter of your life on day one, would you even need faith? Or would you simply need a good memory? Faith isn't believing after you've seen the evidence. Faith is taking the next step before you have it. Think about Abraham. He wasn't handed a detailed roadmap. He was told to go. Think about Moses. He wasn't shown 40 years in the wilderness before he took the first step. Think about Noah. He built an ark before a single drop of rain fell. Again and again, throughout Scripture, God provides enough light for the next step, not the entire journey. Maybe that's intentional, because trust isn't built by knowing everything. Trust is built by continuing anyway. There's another reason I don't think we're meant to know the future. Knowing the destination can make us ignore the transformation. We are so obsessed with arriving that we forget the person we're becoming on the way. The promotion isn't the whole story. The discipline you developed earning it is. The marriage isn't the whole story. The patience, forgiveness, and sacrifice that shaped it are. The successful business isn't the whole story. The failures that taught resilience are. We celebrate outcomes, but life is constantly shaping character, and character can't be downloaded, it has to be developed. And maybe that's why life refuses to skip chapters, because every chapter prepares you for the next one. And here's the thought that I cannot shake: what if the greatest gift God ever gave us was not certainty, but possibility? Every sunrise whispers the same message: your story is not finished yet. You still have choices to make, people to become, dreams to chase, and forgiveness to offer, courage to discover. As long as tomorrow is unknown, hope is still alive, and hope has carried people through prisons, through wars, through grief, through addiction, through heartbreak, through impossible odds. Not because they knew everything would work out, but because they believed there was still another page to write. And that brings us to the final chapter, because after everything we've explored, there's only one question left. So, what's my 2 cents? So, we've walked this road together, we've imagined the book, we've explored the temptation of certainty, we've counted the cost of knowing, we've flipped the coin, and we've looked through the lens of psychology, neuroscience, philosophy, and faith. Now it's time for my 2 cents. If someone placed that black book in my hands today, I wouldn't open it. Not because I don't get curious. Trust me, I definitely do. I'd love to know if the dreams I've been working toward will come true. I'd love to know if the people I love will be okay. I'd love to know that every setback I've endured is leading somewhere beautiful. But if I knew all of that, I don't think I'd be living anymore. I think I'd be following a script. See, I don't believe life is meant to be predicted. I believe it's meant to be participated in. And there's a difference. Imagine going to the beach. You could spend the entire day studying the tide charts, measuring the waves, calculating the wind speed, and predicting the sunset down to the minute. You'd know everything about the beach, but you might never step into the water. And some people are so busy trying to predict life, they forget to actually live it. Maybe that's us sometimes. We are waiting for certainty before we start the business, waiting for certainty before we fall in love, waiting for certainty before we leave the job that no longer fits, waiting for certainty before we answer the calling that's been tugging on our hearts for years. But certainty rarely comes first. Action does. And then, looking back, clarity follows. There's a quote often attributed to Soren Kierkegaard that says, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." Whether those exact words resonate with you or not, the idea is profound. None of us gets to read tomorrow's chapter today. We only get today, this page, this moment, this decision. And maybe that's enough. Think about that. Think about every person who's ever changed your life. You probably didn't know that they would. The mentor who gave you the advice you still carry today. The stranger who became your best friend. The opportunity that looked like bad luck at first. The heartbreak that eventually redirected your entire future. And if you had skipped those chapters because you already knew the ending, would you have become the same person? I don't think so. One of my favorite analogies is the sculptor. When you look at a finished statue, it's easy to admire the masterpiece. What you don't see are the thousands of strikes from the chisel, the dust, the imperfection, the hours of shaping. If the marble could talk on day one, it might beg the sculptor to stop. It wouldn't understand that every strike had a purpose. Life feels like that sometimes. We pray for the finished sculpture while God is still holding the chisel. And the truth is, the chisel hurts. Disappointment hurts. Waiting hurts. Loss hurts. Growth hurts. But pain isn't always proof that something is being destroyed. Sometimes it's proof that something extraordinary is being created. That's why I don't want the book. Because if I knew every painful chapter in advance, I might run from the very experiences that would shape me into who I'm meant to become. I'd avoid the heartbreak that taught me compassion, the failure that taught me resilience, the rejection that redirected my purpose, the closed door that forced me to find the one I was actually supposed to walk through. How many blessings first arrived disguised as disappointments? We'll never know. And maybe we're not supposed to. Because life isn't an exam where the answers are printed in the back of the book. It's an invitation to trust, to risk, to hope, to love, to fail, and to get back up and keep becoming. So, would knowing your future ruin your life? Maybe not. But I think it would change the one thing that makes life so incredibly beautiful, its ability to surprise you. Every sunrise is an unopened gift. Every conversation is a door that hasn't been opened yet. Every decision is a fork in the road where not your certainty determines the direction. And perhaps that's the greatest miracle of all. Not that we don't know what's coming, but that every single day we still get to choose who will be when it arrives. So I'll leave you with this. If someone handed you that black book today, would you read it or would you close it, smile, and decide the greatest story you'll ever experience is the one that's still being written? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your answer. And if today's conversation made you stop and think, don't forget to like, share, and follow. Share this episode with someone who loves asking life's big questions. Because the best conversations don't end when the video does, they begin. Thank you for sitting with me today. Thank you for taking the time to reflect, grow, and keep going. Remember, God isn't finished with you. Your story still matters, and everything you've lived through has purpose. This has been Penny for Your Thoughts, and that's my 2 cents.